So, first of all, there are all these little living beings in there. How exciting is that? The other myth is that the right hemisphere is emotional and the left hemisphere is thinking. And that's not true either. Anatomically, we have emotional tissue in both hemispheres and we have thinking tissue in both hemispheres.
Welcome to Living in the Miracle Zone. I'm your host, Marci Shimoff, and I'm a #1 New York Times bestselling author, a teacher in The Secret, and the creator of the worldwide program, Your Year of Miracles. And today we get to spend time in the Miracle Zone with Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. And Dr. Jill was a Harvard-trained brain scientist. She was actually teaching at Harvard when she had a severe hemorrhage in the left hemisphere of her brain, and she lost her ability to read and write and talk and walk and remember anything. And she wrote a best-selling book, My Stroke of Insight, which spoke about this and her 8-year recovery. And then she wrote a more recent book called Whole Brain Living, which is about the anatomy of choice and the 4 characters that drive our life. And it's equally brilliant and compelling. And today, Jill is sharing with us her insights into how she got inspired to go on her journey of studying the brain because of her brother. And she also shares with us the 4 parts of the brain and how we can do a brain huddle to put ourselves more in the miracle zone. And she shares the 90-second rule, which is a cool rule to really understand how to get in that miracle zone. And she is just full of life and inspiration. So let's hear from Jill. Jill, I love getting to be with you. Anytime I get to be with you, I love it because you have the most contagiously wonderful energy. And so thank you for being with us.
Oh, Marci, I'm happy to be here. And you actually have a neural network over your head.
I do.
You do.
Wow.
It is. It's like the branches of Marci. Yeah, I know.
I never ever thought of that. So for those of you who are just listening, what Jill's referring to is that I've got a painting of the tree of life above my head, and she's calling it my neural network. And
yeah.
Jill, we'll get into describing what you mean by that. But so Jill, you have this amazingly fabulous energy, and I know that it wasn't always like that for you. So maybe you could tell us a little bit just about what happened for you and how your life turned around.
Yeah. So I grew up to study the brain because I have a brother who's been diagnosed with the brain disorder schizophrenia. And so as a child, my colleague in life essentially was this child who was going to grow up to be very different from me. And because he was so different in how he interpreted our experiences, I just tuned into what is human, what am I, what is normal, what are we as these biological creatures? And eventually my brother would be diagnosed with schizophrenia and I would grow up to be a neuroanatomist at a cellular level. So I think in terms of the cells of the brain. And then I was teaching and performing research at Harvard Medical School. And at the age of 37, I had a blood vessel explode in the left half of my brain. And over the course of 4 hours, I literally watched my brain go offline circuit by circuit to the point where I could not walk, talk, read, write, or recall any of my life. And I essentially became an infant in a woman's body. And when I awoke later that afternoon, all I was a big ball of energy. I was conscious, I was aware, but I had absolutely no movement. But I was alive, and that was all that mattered. Was I was alive, and just knowing my focus became, oh my gosh, I'm alive, and the wonder and the awe and the sense of gratitude that I had life. And so I used that energy in order to really go through brain surgery, have a blood clot removed, take the pressure off the brain. And then it took 8 years for me to rebuild circuit by circuit the cells of my left hemisphere and those abilities. And I just have ended up with this driving energy.
What's so remarkable about your story, Jill? I love it. It's as though it was beautifully scripted as a movie well in advance, that you would end up having this brother who would encourage you to not encourage you, but the situation would encourage you to become a brain scientist, and then you have your own stroke. It's like, wow, who could write a script that brilliant?
No, I agree with you. I think it's an amazing story, and so and we all have a story. And this could have been viewed and perceived very differently, very negatively, very, oh, woe is me. But no, it was like I was just so excited I was alive. And what a blessing, even as the blessing of having my brother's relationship with schizophrenia, because it was because of him that I was fascinated with how does our brain create our perception of reality. I mean, how many little children grow up wondering that, right? And so that was actually the focus of my research at Harvard was how does our brain create our perception of reality? How can any two of us have the exact same experience but walk away with very different perceptions and perspectives about what had happened? And then it was like the universe said, well, little girl, be very careful what you ask for. And we're really going to give you a lesson in how your brain creates reality by wiping out half of my brain. And here you are.
And what's so interesting to me, because here we're all about living in what we call the miracle zone, that place where there's just flow and synchronicity and life is working. And it's very clear that that became your state of life after the stroke. Was you have learned how to live in the miracle zone. So what I'm very curious about is, how does that happen? How do we help our brains shift so that we are living in that greater state of flow? I mean, what did you experience living in the miracle zone, and then how can we do this?
I think the point is that the miracle zone is in the present moment. And, we have this amazing group of cells inside of our left hemisphere that actually brings information in from the present moment and then steps out of the consciousness of the present moment in order to compare the present moment with everything we've ever experienced in the past and project into the future. So, at a biological level, we are programmed in our left hemisphere to be at some time other than right here, right now. And then the right hemisphere is all about right here, right now, because we have to be in the present in order to protect ourselves. And then the left hemisphere comes in and says, but I don't want to just protect myself from the present moment. I want to protect myself from all the pain I ever had in the past. So if anything in the present moment looks like or stimulates that circuitry from my pain from my past, then, I'm going to push it away and say, no, I don't want that in my life in the present. So the miracle zone is right here, right now. So, and many of us don't spend a whole lot of time in the present moment. So I really encourage people to just stop and think about, pause every now and again. And if I'm thinking about my homework assignment for tomorrow, or what am I going to have for dinner, or why did I put these shoes on this morning? My mind is not in the present, and start paying attention, number one, to what is the temporality of most of your mind most of the time of the day. And you can purposely, okay, what does that mean? Bring my mind to the present. Smells. What does it feel like to have your clothing on your body? What does it feel like if you have glasses on your nose? What does it feel like? What will the experience of diving into the water and feeling the pressure against your body, and the temperature of the air and the humidity in the air, and opening the mind up into a more expansive awareness of my sensory systems in the here and now.
So from the sound of it, the right brain is the side that's in the present and now. The left brain is in the future and the past. We don't want to make a bad guy of the left brain, I don't think. So I know you talk about in whole brain living, you talk about how to make it all work. So maybe we could Could you share about the four quadrants and whole brain learning and live?
Yes, absolutely. So when we think about ourselves, there are a couple of myths about the brain. The first one is we only use 10%. No, I can guarantee you, if it's a neuron and it's alive and it's in your head, you're using it. So first of all, there are all these little living beings in there. How exciting is that? The other myth is that the right hemisphere is emotional and the left hemisphere is thinking. And that's not true either. Anatomically, we have emotional tissue in both hemispheres and we have thinking tissue in both hemispheres. So the left thinking tissue is the portion of our brain that we think of as our alpha type personality. It likes to organize and categorize. It likes to be the boss. It likes to control people, places, and things. It's punctual because it knows how to manage time. It can project, it thinks hierarchically, so it can project itself into the future and project itself into the past. And we absolutely have to have this character one personality because this is how we relate our internal world to the external world. So absolutely, the left brain, it was fabulous when I didn't have a left brain because I experienced peace, nirvana, and euphoria constantly, but I was completely non-functional, right? If you're in your meditation and you're off in your zone, you are not functioning in the world in those moments, right? So it's this beautiful balance between these four different modules of cells. So character one is that left thinking tissue that relates us to the external world and helps us organize our world. Character two is the emotional tissue of the past and our fears of the future. And we have to have pain from the past because pain is, whether it's a physical pain or an emotional pain, it's a warning. It's an alarm, alert. We've got a problem. We need attention at the level of the body. So whether it's a physical pain that says, oh, I need the immune system to come down here and clear out the tissue damage, or it might be, okay, when I was a little girl, I was bit by a dog that looked like that. And now in the present moment, every time I see a dog that looks like that dog that bit me in the past, I go into alarm, alert, be cautious. That's important. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. That's how we heal. And we have to be able to learn and grow and heal in order to be able to have transformation back into the present moment. So character one is that rational thinking character of A-type personality. Character two is all of our pain from the past, which we have to have in order to learn and grow. Character three is the emotional tissue of the right here, right now experiential. It's playful, it's open, it's curious, it's expansive. It's going to color out of the box because the box is defined by the left hemisphere. So this is our curiosity and our innovation and our entrepreneurialism and our adventure and all the possibilities of the present moment. What does it feel like? Let's go play. Marci, let's go play in the woods. There's no time on it. We're just going to go be in the flow of the present moment and do what we want to do. And then character four is the right thinking tissue. And that's the portion that simply is alive. It's the observer. It's the part of ourselves that just is grateful that we have life. There's euphoria, there's peacefulness, there's just the awe of, oh my gosh, it doesn't matter if I'm alive or what's happening right now because I'm alive and I'm capable of having the experience. But boom, if I should die in an instant, it was like, that's okay too, because life happens and then no life happens. And who knows what happens after there's no life.
So we've got these four, I like to think of them and tell me if this is correct, these four quadrants of the brain. And the character one is in the upper left. Character one and two are the left brain, and character three and four are the right brain. So character one is the thinking left brain, and then character two is I think of it below that. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Like,
it actually
I don't
is.
know if they're related to and are they actually related to the sections of the brain?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this is actual. So if you think about the difference between a reptile and a mammal. Reptiles are our brainstem level of on-off switches. A reptile, I'm hungry, I eat, I'm done. I'm thirsty, I drink, my brain tells me to stop drinking. So it's really the on-off switches. And then new tissue gets added on top. And that is the limbic or emotional tissue. And that's the difference between a mammal and a reptile. And so the emotional tissue is a new filter through which the brain tissue is going to process information as it regulates and modulates the brainstem tissue. So, as a mammal, the process then is this integration and streamlining of the connections between the newly added on emotional limbic tissue and the reptilian tissue below. And then comes human. And with human comes new tissue on top. And that's the thinking cerebral cortices in each hemisphere. And the purpose of the new thinking tissue is to modulate and regulate the emotional tissue below it. And so the evolution of humanity, of what we're doing as humans, is we're working out and streamlining the relationship between the two thinking modules of tissue, the two emotional modules of tissue, and so that we have access to all four portions of our brain in relationship with one another. And it just so happens that each of those groups of cells then result in very specific skill sets that manifest as very specific personalities. So behaviorally, as I look at that tree of life behind you coming up out of you, each of those branches then becomes part of the tree of life, and we each have all four of these characters. And when we get to know these characters, and we can help in looking at inside of our own head the relationship between each four characters inside of our own head, then all of a sudden then I have more say moment by moment in who and how I want to be in any moment. And that becomes a choice that I can take responsibility for. And Marci, what that means is if there's four in me and there's four in you, there is 8 of us in every relationship.
That's a busy relationship. No wonder relationships can be interestingly inactive.
Exactly.
So Jill, practically speaking, you speak about something called the Brain Huddle. How do we use these four characters or relate to these four characters in such a way that we can actually put ourselves more in the miracle zone on a daily basis?
So the first thing is me being willing to recognize in any moment which of these four characters is embodying me. Am I running my to-do list? Am I teaching something? Am I on the phone organizing things? Am I in my character 1? Am I being very playful? Am I just creative and in the creative zone of character 3? Am I just sitting back going, oh my gosh, I'm alive. I look at where I live. I live with the heron. I live with the bobcat. I live with the fish and the turtles. Oh my gosh, wow, thank you, God. Or am I in my little character 2 because I've been emotionally dysregulated and emotionally triggered by something? And that's what happens to my little character 2. And so, first of all, being able to recognize each of these four characters and then doing what I call the Brain Huddle, BRAIN. And B stands for breath. Breath, why the breath? It's a train running down a track in the present moment. We can change the amplitude, we can change the frequency, but as soon as I bring my mind to my breath, I'm in the present moment observing my breath. So B stands for breath. R is then recognize which of the four characters called this Brain Huddle. Which of the four characters was dominant in me in that moment when we all of me, called the huddle. A is appreciate the fact that no matter who called the huddle, which part of me, that there's 4 of me in here. And then I is inquire, well, which one do I want to be next? What do I want to be now? What is it appropriate? In this moment, it is not appropriate for me to jump into my character 3 and go jump in the lake. No, I need to be in my character 2 or character 1 for a little bit longer and keep my little character 2 happy and my little character 3, hold the reins in. So I is inquire, which one do I want to be? And then N stands for navigate moment by moment, because life is a moment by moment unfolding. And the miracle zone, if I step out of my character 4 and I step into my character 1, that may be just fine as long as they're balanced between the gratitude and the sense of blissful great grace that exists at the soul of who I am. And if I'm negotiating between these 4 characters and they all get a voice, then everybody gets held, they get heard, they get loved, they get supported, and I get to live in the miracle zone.
I, I so appreciate that it's the 4 of them working together. There's a term called spiritual bypass. And that's, I imagine people who just want to stay in that character 4 and not deal with the reality that we're in bodies now and in life, that's an engaging life. So how do we, if somebody has a tendency to go into that place of, oh, I just want to be in peace and bliss and I don't want to deal with all the rest of me, what do you suggest they do?
I think we as human beings, it is the evolution of humanity to have all 4 characters in conversation with one another. That does not mean deny my pain, bypass my character 2, jump into my character 3, distract myself and go play, or to move into my spiritual connectedness to all that is and bypass the 2. It is through character 2 that we learn. We have to go into the pain, but pain is there to be a lesson, not a lifestyle. And that's really important. And I think a lot of people are afraid, well, if I step into my pain, then it just will overwhelm me. Well, the way circuits work, they don't work like that. The way brain cells work is that I think thoughts, I feel emotions, and I run physiological responses to what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. And the more we run any circuit, the stronger that circuit becomes so that it begins to run on automatic. But it has a natural lifestyle of less than 90 seconds. So I can move into the pain of my grief that I lost my mom, who was just my everything twice. She reared me twice. You can feel the emotion coming in, but diving into it and feeling it and letting it have its voice and envelop me and take me literally takes less than 90 seconds. Now I can stay in my grief or my pain or my anger or my fear for longer than 90 seconds. But what I'm doing is I'm actually rerunning that circuitry. I'm rethinking the thought, re-stimulating the emotional circuitry, rerunning the physiological response, and then which results in the behavior in the external world. So the more we think about what we are as biological creatures and appreciate that we are these magnificent collection of cells with these 4 different modules, we can get to know all 4 modules. We don't have to be afraid of any of them. Look at the interplay and relationships between them, and then use a tool like the Brain Huddle in order to bring ourselves moment by moment into who and how we want to be. And we all, I believe, have that power.
So is this what do you refer to this as the 90-second rule? And
Yes.
So let me just make sure I'm clear what you're saying. So according to the 90-second rule, if there's a pain, you're going to experience it for 90 seconds and then you move past it. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that at the core of a pain, let's say I'm going to feel grief, or let's say I'm madder than hell at you. You did something to me 20 years ago, and I am still, every time I think about Marci, I get madder than hell. So I think Marci, I'm thinking thoughts. It stimulates I am still madder than hell. I'm holding a grudge against Marci. And so then I have a physiological response of something, depending on the emotion, gets dumped into my bloodstream. It floods through me. I feel my jaw. I feel my eyes. I feel my face. I get big, ugly, and mean because it's like rah, 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 rah. And then, but it only takes less than 90 seconds for that to run through my body and flush completely out of my blood. So we run our emotional loops on these 90-second loops. Now, I can keep thinking about that and keep running that circuit and keep rerunning that loop, or so that I can stay mad at you for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I can hold that grudge for 30 years.
So the idea is after you've been through the experience of it in 90 seconds, what do? You move into some forgiveness, you move into letting go, you move on to something else.
Well, then I'm free. I'm free from the character 2 grab and hold on to it. And then character 1 can come and look at it and say, is there something here that needs repair? Is there something I can do to fix this? But little character 2 has to be ready, right? Before character 1 can come in and fix anything. Character 3 might come in and say, I'm not ready to deal with this, but let's go play. We don't need to feel that. We don't need to rerun that. And that actually can bring illness because each of these 4 characters, they vibrate at different wavelengths. We all know when we're at work, somebody walks into the room, they know we're working, right? They know that as opposed to we're feeling very playful or we're very unhappy or we're just blissed out in our euphoria. We feel these different vibrations. So then I think the important thing, Marci, is to realize that 3/4 of our brain, they're just fine. It's going to be a little character 2. And how do we nurture our little character 2? And character 4 can come in and hold the pain of our own little character 2. And so we have the capacity to self-nurture. Character 1 can come in and say, character 2, are you safe in this moment? Is there anything you need in the present moment? And little character 3 can come in and say, okay, when you're ready, let's go do something fun. But it's not about ignoring the pain of character 2. It's about when little character 2 is ready to be heard, recognizing little, and it's good for little character 2 to know she's got these 3 other pals right there inside of her own head who are there to support her, to nurture, to play, and to help her heal.
What a beautiful way to look at and to experience that character 2 is recognizing the other 3 characters are there together to help the character 2 in what it needs. That's so I love the way of looking at this. And I have to say, Jill, you are so living this. You know, when we got on before we started, we shared how you're living your life on this beautiful houseboat and how you really are in the miracle zone. Just tell us a little bit about your life now and how you're living on this houseboat and what it's like to be for you with these 4 characters just working together.
I live out in an absolutely gorgeous, serene, private cove for 6 months of my life on this boat. And so I have a symbiotic relationship with the boat because the biggest difference between life in a house and life on my boat is life on the boat is really living outside. I sleep under the stars. I eat outside. I'm exercising on the water constantly. But I live on 31 batteries. I have solar power. I have a generator. I have a symbiotic relationship with the boat itself. So it becomes a primary relationship, which is an interesting thing. But my neighbors I've got about 8 turtles who come and they're my little friends. And this year there's a new bobcat and there's a pair of heron with an adolescent heron. And last year I saw a lion walking by, lioness with her little cub in her mouth. So, I live outside, and the vulnerability, the difference between living in a sheltered world where I can, jump in my car and go anywhere. Here, I'm just in this cove and in this portion of the lake, and it becomes a very intimate and integrated symbiotic relationship, really living with God. So the name of the boat is Brainwaves, and I absolutely love my life being here. And as you can see, like 2 years ago, I wrote Whole Brain Living out here, and last year I podcasted like 250 podcasts. So it's not like I'm not working. I am, but it is the level of balance is I don't see a whole lot of people. My creatures are my friends. Friends do come and visit. I do a lot of self-nurturing. I have a massage therapist comes out every week. And, I'm spoiled rotten. And it's just the life I choose. And because I have her work on my body, I can ride my hydro bike. I can do my paddleboarding. I can do my rowing. I can do my swimming. I can be in my hull working on my generator. I can be redoing my whatever. And she just puts me back together again, and I just go back to living another week.
What a great way to live. I just spent a week out in nature in a nature vigil where we were outside all week, and it just, to let the body and the brain start regulating with the rhythm of nature is so exquisite. So
It is.
so glad
It,
you
it
could do
is.
that. I and it just it's you. I can feel it from you. I'm ready for a visit. I'm coming. I just invited myself, Bill.
I love it. You're more than welcome. The door's open.
Oh, oh, thank you. Well, this has been spectacular. And I know that people who want to reach you, they can find you at drjilltaylor.com. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just starting to run courses on whole brain living, so that's very exciting. And a new website will be coming out in the next couple of weeks, and so everything is just kind of coming to its new tree. I'm looking at your head again, and that tree of life keeps growing, and that's the beauty of life, is that it's constantly changing, and allowing the present moment to be the present moment, and what is, and open to what is, instead of holding on to how I want it to be, or how it used to be, or how I need it to be. No, when we bring ourselves into the present and we really have a sense of gratitude for what is, oh my gosh, that is the miracle zone.
Mm. Mm, that is so gorgeous. Well, I thank God for your brother who got you interested in the brain. I thank God for your stroke that got you this beautiful insight and brilliance, and for your heart, for how you are dedicated to helping people live their best lives through whole brain living and living in the miracle zone.
Thank you.
Jill, thank
Thank you,
you.
dear.
I adore you,
See you.
man. I'm so grateful.
Thank you, Marci. Love, love.